Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Apple Bites. We are driven by Bitten Apple TV. And without any further ado, I'm going to bring in my other co host, and that is the Written Ralph. How are you, Ralph?
Well, hello there, Apple Bites. This is your Apple Bite Raphael Tavares talking to you straight from Apple Bites. We take
Yes.
out of the apple and share it with you.
You have something new and pithy every week, I tell you.
It has to, sooner or later, it has to click. Come on.
I like last week's, though. That was actually pretty good.
I'm going to have to go back to last week and go, all right, let's try this one.
Yeah, take a bite out of the apple and see how it tastes. That was really good. Yeah.
Maybe that's where we're going to go with this. All right, I'll try it next week and see what happens. Take a bite out of the apple and see how it tastes.
Oh, I like that one. I really do. So how's your week been so far?
It's been an interesting week. I've been, I've been working on this thing so I can do the episode with Phil where we talk about Star Wars. And I've been having all these like thoughts and processes on, Star Wars and fandom and, the fanboys. And then I was watching as well WandaVision, which I've been enjoying pretty well.
Finally.
It's a great show, and I've watched every single episode so far, and 4 just threw me out of the water, and I was like, ooh.
4 threw everybody out of the water this weekend. My husband, he couldn't get into the first episode, and he was like, I don't know, because it's kind of, there's a lot of detail in the first episode. You really don't know what's going on. But then when I saw the 4th episode the other night, I was like, oh my gosh, you have got to watch this show. Exactly. And you have to watch it thoroughly. You have to actually watch every minute of it and just, maybe rewind it and watch it and everything else. It's so good. It's so really good and so very well done. I mean,
it is. I liked it from the beginning especially because, WandaVision, I like old sitcoms. Mm-hmm. And I loved watching how they would do the new sitcom each week. And I was like, oh my God, this is just fantastic. I have to admit, I was expecting the next one for episode 4, and then when they went completely different with it, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
But at least it explained everything and it intermingles with the 3 episodes we saw before that, and I really love that.
Yep, it's been really good. So if you're not watching it, I tell you out there, I cannot. If you are a Marvel fan, especially if you know Marvel lore, if you know Marvel origin stories, you have got to watch this show. You will not be disappointed. I guarantee it. You will not be disappointed. So I wrapped this week. I did a shoot this Monday, and I wrapped my segment for the shoot.
Oh, already? Oh.
Yeah. Quick. But I had to do like 3 COVID tests. I told you, like I had to have a COVID
I remember
test.
that.
Yeah, I had to do a COVID test before when they found out I got hired. Then I had to do a COVID test when I went on set, or actually at the studios to do my fitting, and then I had to do a rapid test when I was on set in the holding area.
Right.
Very interesting though. But yeah, it's finished. I think it's going to be a really good show. I'm really excited to see what people think about it.
Right.
And it's so up my alley, this show. I can't wait to see it. I mean, I'm not really concerned about my little bitty part that I have in it. I'm really glad that I got it, but I can't wait to see the show because it's based on something real, like true story stuff. So
I find that stuff really interesting. So
hey, Mia. So this is one of those true crime stories, those hidden mystery stories that you hear about in podcasts. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure I can guarantee that anybody here in the East Coast has probably heard this one. So I'm excited about it.
Right.
But so next month is Black History Month.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, and we are, of course, here at the Bitten Apple TV, we are celebrating this. I mean, we are a group of people that are people of color. So, of course, we're definitely going to be, we have different origins and different histories and stuff like that. So we're going to be celebrating it. But I really thought it would be really interesting if you and I could go back to that. We actually did a show one time where we did the top Black superheroes that people didn't know. Right. So I felt like we could probably do that next month.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Maybe do a little segment on that. Do a little segment on Black horror. All the things in geekdom that we definitely cover. But from the Black perspective. So we're going to be doing that next Saturday, you all. I'm really excited. And we're going to be highlighting the top 10 independent superheroes as well, or we're going to throw in the independent superheroes as well. So we've met plenty of you all in our travels as the Bitten Apple TV. So we would like to really highlight some of those artists and creators. So I'm excited about that.
Well, I loved what we did with that episode. It was what was it? It was a panel for MBionCon, right?
Right, for MBionCon.
Right, and it was amazing how many people didn't realize how many characters of color there are out there.
Yep, there are many of them, and so that just means the possibility is endless as far as what we are going to be, doing in the future as far as creating people of color in comics. And people want to see these stories. They don't want to see just one perspective. They want to see stories. America is colorful. The world is colorful. They want to see these origin stories. And the thing is that superheroes don't just come in one color. They come in many colors. Exactly. So we're really excited to bring that to you all. And I know you're doing something too with Phil. You all were talking about Star Wars.
I completely forgot when I started talking WandaVision. I completely forgot about it.
That's all right. WandaVision does that to you.
Oh my God, it's just a great show, and the writing on it. And I think that's what it was. The comparison of the writing. I'm beginning to go through the Star Wars episodes one at a time, checking out what is the issue that people have with Star Wars. And I'm beginning to wonder, I'm not going to say that the Star Wars episodes are well written or they're better than people say they are. But I feel that maybe the fandom or the fanboys are one of the problems to Star Wars or any other fandoms, because they have these these beliefs on what the show should be like, and I feel like they tend to blind themselves to anything else that these movies are trying to do.
Well, Karen, I think her name is Karen Tran. I think that isn't it her name?
I think that's what it is. I think it posted a little article on the Bitten Apple, when she saw somebody cosplaying as her character.
Yes,
she was so excited. Yeah.
Yes, because she's been getting a lot of bad flack. She cannot help that this character was created, where she was. And honestly, I'm glad to see a Vietnamese person in the Star Wars universe. I'm glad to see anybody of color in the Star Wars universe. For somebody who was a fan at the age of 16 and went to go see this movie like 20 something times, I didn't see anybody that looked like me when I watched that show. Exactly. When I watched that series when it first came out. So I'm glad to see that. I really just hate it when people are not supporting these actors when they're giving the storyline, because somewhere out there in this world, even if you don't like it, there is a fan who really appreciates this side or this perspective, this director's vision or Disney's vision of Star Wars. And you can't knock that. Even if you are a purist, don't knock somebody's introduction to it. This is what you do. I really hate that. It's like, I guess I want to compare it to Bible thumping, but I don't want to say that because
it's very similar.
I
get upset with.
I want to be that extreme. I don't want to be that extreme as a Christian woman. I don't want to be that extreme, but that's what I'm saying. You think your way is the right way.
Exactly. You don't want to listen to anybody else.
You don't want to listen to nobody else. So that's wrong to do that. But anyway, some fans have been really just mean to her in social media. And this poor girl, when you actually posted that, when she saw a child dressed up like her or a fan dressed up like her, she completely went to her knees in tears because she's been getting so much flack from people doing stuff. I just, I think that we're in the court of public opinion right now, and it's all in social media. And the thing is that it's, right now, you have people who are a captive audience, and they're listening to any old body's opinion that doesn't make sense. And people are coming out of left field with all kinds of comments and stuff. But you all do your own research. Please don't listen to everybody. Do your own research, because for every time you see some false story or some story out there, there's probably about 10 fools writing the same nonsense. So, it's just foolishness.
It bugs me out as a writer, as writers do tons and tons of research. It always bugs me out how people will see one source, and then they go, I got all the information I need from that one source. And then you talk to them about it, and they're like, well, yeah, so and so said this, and so said that. I'm like, yeah, but you're not really looking at the bigger story. And then I also feel like, what does the actor have to do with what the actor is acting? Okay, maybe the actor's not acting as well as they should be, but that's a whole other thing that we criticize on. But if you're criticizing the actor on the character they're playing, then what are we doing? It doesn't make any sense. Why are you going to tear into this actor if they're doing the role that they've been told to do?
You obviously have too much time on your hands. That's exactly what it is. And the fact is, you're going for likes, you're going for comments, and you don't care if it's controversial or not, because they're showing you some kind of attention, even if it's bad attention. You know what they say, when an actor does something bad out there in public, they're saying, oh, that was bad press. No, bad press is always good press, because they're talking about you. Mm-hmm. So that's what people do when they go and make ridiculous comments like that. And the biggest thing is, if you are somebody who doesn't participate in this type of bullying online, don't answer them. Don't give them what they want. That's basically what they want. They want this interaction between you and them, and definitely. They say things that are mm-hmm. inflammatory to get you involved. Exactly. So, you just gotta, you gotta just go on and say, hey, I can't do this. Let me just go next, swipe right, whatever.
Oh, I see today we got like an active posse here. Oh my God, I love Star Wars from Mia. I love the diversity of Star Wars. Good job, Leslie from Zeta. Oh, everybody's not having fun over here.
Yeah. Hey, maybe we should start late every Saturday.
It looks like it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, we did start late, you all. I had like a little crisis. It's freezing here in the East Coast. I mean, we've got like below something weather, and I live in a turn of the century house. So whenever this happens, our pipes have this like weird thing where they kind of like semi-freeze over, where here's the thing. I get plenty of hot water, no cold water. So here's, who wants to take a shower in a scalding hot bath or whatever? It's just crazy. So yes, it's freezing here. And so I'm dealing with all of that this morning. And then my computer didn't work. And, I think it had too much action last night, because like I said, I had 2 shows last night, and I was just like, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah, definitely. But anyway, we have some really great guests today. I'm so excited to introduce our guest. So let's talk a little bit about our first guest who's coming in. We are talking about Chris PANICCIA, and I hope I said that right, because I pride myself on the fact that I speak several languages, Italian being a little. I do speak that. So I saw those two C's together. So I know it's such a cheap sound. So yeah, I'm sure a lot of people have actually slaughtered his name, poor thing. So anyway, he gave me a very extensive bio, and I can actually only tell you a little bit about this man, because this man has done a lot. So I'm going to see what I can. Amazing. Yeah, he is amazing based on this bio. So let me just tell you a little bit about him. He was raised in Southern New England. He's the oldest of 3 children. He's a graduate of Rhode Island School of Design, where he studied printmaking, and graduate of Bridgewater State University, where he studied education. In his youth, of course, he played a lot of sports in the New England area, and being in the New England area, it allowed him to spend all his days at the beach. Lucky you. Because I would say, if he is actually from Rhode Island, that is a beautiful beach with all the mansions around it and everything. I just love it up there any time of the year. He served, most importantly, and this is really important to me because this is dear to my heart, he served in active duty combat medic in the United States Air Force during Desert Storm. And he finished his teaching and arts degree. He's been teaching both elementary as well as college students for over 20 years. He's married. He has 3 lovely daughters. And he is from Rhode Island. He lives in Rhode Island. He calls North Providence, Rhode Island, his home. I will be coming to visit you, Chris. But he's inspiring in all the things that he does. So he debuted his series, the Gridiron Conspiracy trilogy. It's an epic tale of mystery and intrigue. Gridiron actually being the one thing that really caught my attention, because I've not read this trilogy, but it has to do with football, and I'm all in. And this mystery thriller will astonish even the most critical readers. The Gridiron Conspiracy trilogy has elements for every type of reader, with the characters drawing you into the story. It's a terrific sci-fi twist. Ooh, two things I like: football and sci-fi. And the story is real, or is it fiction?
Interesting.
So yeah, so we did an interview with Chris. Actually, I think Katma did an interview with him.
Yes.
And let's look at that interview real quick of Chris when we did do the interview, because I think that would kind of give you a little bit more overall detail.
I was wondering if you found that one.
Actually, Chris found it. So let's see if I can find that video.
Yeah, we ran into Chris and the rest of the Rhode Island crew, because he's part of that Rhode Island crew that we talked to, and he actually just missed us doing the Rhode Island Expo a little while back, and he wanted to be on that.
Oh, all right. So let's go ahead and let's start this. Show this real quick.
Hey guys, this is Captain here from Bitten Apple TV in conjunction with It Came From the Radio. We are here at Big AppleCon. Both apples taking a bite out of each other now. Now we're here with Christopher. Of course, you know, we love your little corner of Rhode Island. We love you guys very much. He's an author and an illustrator, and we also have an original comic book that we're going to be talking about as well. Please do tell my viewers about your book, From Heaven's Gate, Rise, and then we also have this lovely little beauty here. So tell my viewers about this.
Well, we'll take a look at the original comic book for first of all. As an author and an illustrator, I actually get a chance to do both. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll work on the storyboards for the comics. And what I did is the gentleman who actually wrote the comic book wrote a screenplay called An Echo in Time. And through collaboration, we're actually putting the full-length picture together this summer in Las Vegas. So this is a comic trailer to kick off the season so that we can get people interested, get some buzz, so that when the movie comes out, you'll already kind of have some buzz going on with it.
Oh my God, you guys are hearing it live here with us. Oh my God, that's so awesome. So tell us a little bit more about it. I mean, because she looks really badass. I like her.
Well, An Echo in Time, you know, she is the heroine. She's a very strong character. She's also actually the model in Rise up there. Her name's Bailey Curran. She is a director and producer out in LA, but she's also going to be starring in the movie as well.
Congratulations, Bailey. That is really awesome. I love the fact that you have a strong woman out there in the front, and I love the fact that the real life one is just as badass. Now tell me a little bit more about.
I get to play the bad guy, but she's going to slice me up with a samurai sword, so that's going to be cool.
Oh, we have a lot to look forward to. Now tell me a little bit more about this one. This one has a very catchy title, so I want to know more about this.
Well, the Gridiron Conspiracy is just that. It's all about conspiracy. It's a mystery thriller with a great sci-fi twist to it. So if you like mystery and conspiracy and sci-fi, it melds it all together really well. And it's very fast-paced. You read through all of the 3 books. It's a trilogy. I wrote it in mind of the big screen. I actually did the screenplay for all 3 of them. But then when I pitched it to the guys out in LA, they're like, you can't do it as a movie. It's got to be an episodic TV show. So right now I'm adjusting the screenplays so I can make it an episodic TV show. It's very much in the vein of Minority Report. So if you watch the Minority Report on TV, you'll love the Gridiron Conspiracy.
Oh my God, we're getting everything from the ground up. I'm so excited. I'm going to tell everyone I know you. I'm telling everyone. Now, when it came to sort of creating this book and writing up the protagonist, what was your inspiration personally as a writer, as well as, the fact that you put together the book, you're doing the screenplay, you're doing all this together. What was your inspiration as you were putting all this together?
Well, most of the stuff that I've been doing is autobiographical in a way. The person that is in the book, Chris Strong, is me. I played football in the Air Force, and I played for a brief time with the Dallas Cowboys. So I incorporate all of those into the storyline.
That's why I'm so short, guys. I mean, I've been trying to stand on my toes this whole time for this interview, and it's not working. Now, in regards to the tribulations that the protagonist goes through, what would be one of the main ones, I guess, that readers can look forward to in this book?
Well, the guy that everybody loves to hate in the story is called Dr. Chase. You don't know whether or not he's a villain or not. Do you hate him? Do you love him? And that has been so intriguing to so many people because they sit there and they say, I don't know what to do with this guy. I don't know if I'm going to hate him, if I love him. And at the end, you don't really know because the last book is redemption. So you're sitting there saying, are people redeemed? Can they be redeemed? Who's redeemed in the end? And it's one of those types of situations where, yeah, it's a mystery thriller. And at the end, you think you got it one way, you think you've solved it, and then it's totally different.
I like the fact that your book is providing questions that we all have in life when we're just wondering, can someone actually be redeemed? I love thought-provoking books. I love that. Now, in regards to Heaven's Gate, tell me about Heaven's Gate.
Well, Heaven's Gate, I was in the military. I was in the Air Force. I did pararescue. My grandfather was in World War II, and he bequeathed to me a bunch of stuff from World War II. And in the box was an ancient journal, and it was all in German. So I'm sitting there. I don't know what to do with it. So I actually had it translated. It talks about the 1938 expedition that the Nazis made to Antarctica, of all places. And when they got to Antarctica, they were looking for an ancient alien civilization called Rainbow City. And it's documented proof that they were there, that they did this. And of course, you look now and you see the Hunting Hitler and all this other stuff on TV, and it makes a lot of sense. So what I did is I took the journal, I took the young man getting the journal, and then I made a fantasy series out of it, and it's taken off. People love it.
Oh my God, that is the most in-depth answer I've ever gotten about a book. He has some really deep books here, man. Oh my God, I don't even know that's amazing. That is very much incredible. Now, as a writer, often you do pull from yourself. And are there any other particular writers or other things that influence your style of writing?
Well, for me as a sci-fi fantasy author, I think we did this actually in a panel earlier yesterday, and we were talking about that. One of the things, I'm a comic guy, so all the sci-fi comics really inspired me. But in terms of writers and stuff like that, in fantasy novels like Tolkien, The Hobbit, stuff like that. So all that stuff inspired me as well.
Precious.
That's right, my precious.
So for those who want to kind of just jump in on this, see what's going on, they want to see an Echo Time, and they're ready to stay in touch with you, see when the televised version of Gridiron Conspiracy is out, where can they find you and make sure that they stay in touch with everything?
Yep, they can check me out at PANICCIA.com. It's really simple.
Make sure you guys stay in tune. I mean, you're getting on to the very beginning. That means you can brag to your friends like, psh, I knew about this before. I appreciate the interview. I love what you have here. It's such an amazing story. Your illustrations are beautiful. I love the dragons. And I love the fact that there's some real history behind Heaven's Gate. And I like the fact that you incorporated yourself and Gridiron Horse. This is some concrete stuff here that you guys have here. Thank you so much, Chris. And make sure you guys stay tuned. Bye.
A couple of things I just realized. Yeah, a couple of things that I just realized. I said his name wrong, but now I've got to ask him about it. I got to ask him about it. If that was the American version of it. And I'm so glad that interview was extremely thorough, because now I want to get to the meat and potatoes of everything that he just talked about.
Well, definitely. I took some notes while I was watching that. So.
What? Oh my God, I had no idea that this was so in-depth, everything that she was talking about. That is just like crazy. So without further ado, because we've only got 30 minutes with him, let's bring him in. Chris, hi. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hi, everyone.
Hey,
How are
Chris.
you? Good afternoon. Nice to see you all.
Thanks for being here. Okay, so is it PANICCIA or PANICCIA?
Well, my grandfather would agree with you, Les, and he would say it's PANICCIA in Italian. So he'd probably come over here and give me a smack in the head for not doing it correctly. But it has been Americanized, so people just say PANICCIA now.
Yeah. But it doesn't even sound like, not to say anything, about your last name, but it just sounds so much better and so Italian if it's PANICCIA.
It does, yes.
Yes, I love it. So, I'm kind of curious. I mean, I know you're working on some new stuff too, but I have to stop. I have to stop for a moment. First of all, thank you so much for your service. Yesterday was my stepdad's birthday, and my stepfather was a Vietnam veteran, and vets are very, very close to my heart. And I cannot tell you how much I appreciate everything that you as a veteran and all of those who serve are veterans. What I can't appreciate them even better, much more than what I could say to you, but thank you so much. And second of all, you played a little bit for the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, it's when I was in the military, I played football for the military, and I actually played in college. And what happened is in the military, depending on what base you go to, they have a lot of semi-pro teams, and like the generals and everything. It's pretty big, but it's the next step up from college, and those of us who didn't actually get invited, to be free agents and things like that, to the go all the way to the pro level. It was something that we could continue to do. So that's what I did, during my service. I would play football, for these folks, and we'd go to different bases and we'd play, around the world. We'd kind of go and we'd play around the world. And what I didn't know is my first sergeant had actually approached one of the coaches at the Dallas Cowboys and said, listen, you got to give this kid a shot. And I had no idea. So, one day I get a phone call, and, I thought it was one of my Air Force buddies pranking me, because of course, that's what we do. We always messing with each other. And he's like, no, this is Coach Jimmy Johnson at Dallas Cowboys. We'd like you to come down and try out. And I'm like, and I hung up on him because I thought he was being a prank. So I'm like, come on, guys, really, seriously, Coach Johnson, come on, right? Like he's really going to call me. So he did. He called back, and I said, yes, sir, I'll be there, absolutely. So I did. I tried out, but back then, it's a lot different than it is today. You would be considered, I guess, practice squad, but it's really you were basically a big tackling dummy. I dressed for a couple of preseason games and stuff like that and everything. But, it was at a time where he was having a lot of folks come in and out and try out and everything. And
what year was this? I don't mean to interrupt you.
Because his first year with the Cowboys was 89. So, at the end of 89, 90. Is when we were kind of doing this, he was having like all these folks come in and try out and everything. So it was a pretty cool experience for me to be able to actually see some of these folks, and I got mentored by Danny White, and Randy White, so you had all these folks that were, and actually I got to see Too Tall Jones at the end of his career, which was really cool, because even though I wasn't a Dallas Cowboy fan, growing up in that era, how could you not be a fan of some of these folks?
Exactly.
And of course, Too Tall Jones was just, he was this epic player, of this whole generation, and just the whole idea of, a football player that's like 6'9", he was humongous, right? I'm almost 6'5", and he made me look small.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I mean, from that standpoint, it was awesome to do. I didn't get to catch on like a lot of these guys do. Like today, some of these guys on the practice squad, they can catch on to other teams and everything. But it was a terrific experience for me, a learning experience.
So from 1984 to 1988, I was an NFL cheerleader for the St. Louis Football Cardinals. Now, interestingly enough, our arch nemesis was the Washington Redskins and the Dallas Cowboys. I have been dying for someone to help me write my memoirs of when football is so much more different today than it was in the 80s and the 70s, even in the 60s. That image of what people imagine about football back in those days is everything that they imagine it to be. It was glamour, and it was chaos too. And it was a very misogynistic generation. Let's face it. It was the 60s, 70s, and 80s. It was just like very, it was the Joe Namaths and the Too Tall Jones and all these people, who made it so much of a colorful sport, and made these people iconic today. So I'm not a big fan of Dallas. And I've never been. So when you told me you were playing for Dallas, I was like, oh gee, I hope he's not a real true Dallas fan, because people who are Dallas fans and people who live in Dallas think that Dallas is the center of the world.
Well,
so
listen.
Sorry to say that to my friends who live there, but y'all do.
I'm a New England fan.
Okay.
So I have to put up with it from everybody, because I mean, and you know what a lot of people around the country don't understand is that as a New England fan, especially someone that grew up here, I mean, we used to sit in an empty stadium to watch games.
Yeah.
I mean, the New England Patriots was so bad for so long. And, we'd go to games, you didn't even have to wait to get in a game. You just walked in the door.
Right.
And then, then along comes, Coach Parcells, and Coach Parcells kind of built a whole different climate and culture of football in the area. Yeah. And then Coach Belichick kind of took it from there, and it just rose to a whole new level.
Yeah.
Of success, and being able to see that success as someone who grew up, just looking at it going, can I just get to the playoffs? Like,
yeah. And how many times have y'all been to the playoffs? Does it ever get old?
Well, I'll tell you, a lot of folks up here, it's going back and forth, because now we're watching Tom Brady playing for someone else and having just as much success playing for someone else. And then, of course, you got Coach Belichick, who really kind of, he just built the model of consistency in this area, and, just taking success to another whole level. And of course, now, and after 20 years, the two of them kind of just said, you know what, we've had enough of each other, and we're going to go our separate ways. But, it's hard as a fan, because, you sit there and you see Tom Brady's continued success, and, God bless him.
Yeah.
I wish him all the success in the world. I mean, as a Patriots fan who, like I said, grew up watching, just teams just constantly bumble over each other, to see him do what he did with Coach Belichick for 20 years. I mean, as a fan, I'm eternally grateful.
Yeah, truly. So who do you take to win this week, this coming weekend? The weekend.
Oh, come on. It's Brady.
I knew you were going to say Brady. After that speech, I was like,
it's going to say Brady. I mean, no.
I'm going to tell you guys this. People need to learn. Do not count that man out.
That's true.
Do not count him out.
Well, Chris, I'm just going to say, I'm from Missouri, and because we don't have any teams anymore, I'm going to have to support the Kansas City, unfortunately, because, we've been left high and dry like a bad marriage with the Cardinals and the Rams. So I'm just saying, I'm from St. Louis. I support the Missouri team, although it's going to be a good game, because I know Brady is playing quarterback. So, it's going to be a good game. I'm gonna have my chicken wings ready.
You know, I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Definitely.
there's so many people that are predicting that it's just going to, you know, be a really lopsided victory in you know, the form of Kansas City taking it. But like I said, I mean, I've learned you don't
Don't
count
count him
Tom
out.
Brady out.
And his last 2 years, yeah, he's going to make sure he goes out with a bang. Definitely, definitely. So we could stay here and talk about football all day, but we are definitely here to talk about your work. And I could talk to you about Rhode Island too all day because I love it there. Tell us a little bit about. Okay, so you are now currently, based on the interview that the Katma did with you, we're going to talk about the Heaven's Gate series, and that's so very interesting. And also your other books, the books that you're doing, the Gridiron Conspiracy. When you were talking, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
With the Gridiron Conspiracy just came out of my all my experience in the military.
Mm-hmm.
It really did, because being you know, when I first went in the military, I went in as a combat medic, and when I was in basic training, my training instructor came up to me, and of course, you know, one of the things they tell you when you go into basic: don't say anything, don't volunteer for anything, keep your mouth shut, and do what you're told. So I'm standing in line, and this training instructor, he's this big bulky guy, comes up and he's pointing his finger at me. He's like, "PANICCIA," he's like, "come with me." I'm like, oh my God, I'm here 5 minutes, I'm already in trouble. What? So I had to actually go in the office, and one of my first sergeants that was there, he had my paperwork in front of him. He goes, "You want to be a medic?" And he looks up at me. He goes, "You don't want to be a medic." He's like, "You want to do pararescue." So I'm 18. I'm 18 years old.
Exactly.
And I'm like, okay, what's that mean? So basically, what it is it's the Air Force's version of a Navy SEAL.
Oh, wow.
You know, so you know, we're charged with, you know, not only saving life, but you also train to take life as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but the biggest thing that happened with us, you know, when you're talking about pararescue, is you actually have to learn how to be a doctor in the field.
Right.
A lot of the folks that were in my class, they washed out because they could do the physical stuff like nobody's business. But when it came to actually being able to save somebody in the field and, you know, sew somebody up or triage someone or, you know, take somebody out that needed to, or, you know, just plain fixing someone out in the middle of nowhere, a lot of these folks, they couldn't do it.
And the thing is that you have to think quickly, because you don't know what kind of circumstance you're going to come up upon when somebody is injured. You know, you might be going into enemy territory, going after your guy. You have to assess the situation immediately and treat them. You know, we would triage them or get them ready just to be carried off to be treated further. So, geez, that's a lot. That's a lot. That really is.
Yeah. So when I came home from the military and you know, I'm doing my teaching and everything, one of my kids said to me, he's like, and they call me Mr. P because, you know, PANICCIA, and trying to figure that out. They're all like, you know, Mr. P, you tell us stories all the time. You really need to start writing this stuff down.
Boom.
It was my kids, it was my students who inspired me and said, you know, because I have all these stories, I've got journals all over the place. I'm always writing down different ideas, and you know, I had the idea for the Gridiron Conspiracy, you know, just sitting there, and you know, when that child told me that, I'm like, you know, I really got to get off my butt and I got to get this stuff down into stories. So when I put the trilogy together, you know, I'm a big fan, and you know, you guys were talking about Star Wars or earlier. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, but just in general, cinematic stuff. I'm a huge movie buff, love movies. So when I wanted, you know, everybody always says, listen, the books are better than the movie. You know, they always tell you that. Well, I wanted to kind of do it the opposite way. I wanted to make the books and the movie together, like just as good.
Yeah.
And so that's the way I wrote the trilogy. I mean, yes, it's action packed. It's full of intrigue. It's got twists and turns everywhere. You think you've got it figured out, and then all of a sudden, here comes the curveball, and you have no idea where it's going. You know, even at the end of Redemption, when you think you've got it figured out, you have no idea what happened at the end.
You know what was very interesting when you were talking about this mysterious doctor that's involved in this trilogy, and you don't know if you should like him or love him. Immediately, I was a huge fan of the X-Files, and it reminded me of the cigarette smoking man, because you didn't know if he was a bad guy or a good guy. You know, and you were always on the edge. It's like, does he really mean what he's saying, or is this true? You know, there was always this intrigue that made people come back for more each week, because you really didn't know what was real and what was not real. You know, was Scully, was Mulder delusional? You know, there was a lot of things, because there was the interweaving of sci-fi into reality, and that's such a good combination.
Exactly.
Anything, you know, so amazing. And then you were telling us a little bit about the your other book that you were talking about, which was Heaven's Gate. Now this doesn't even seem realistic, that you came across something.
Well, my grandfather was a naval officer during World War II. And he was in theater during World War II. And when he returned, you know, he used to kind of tell me little stories here and there. But, you know, a lot of those guys of that generation of World War II, they never really told you anything about what they did when they were in the military.
Right.
You know, today everybody's willing to tell you everything we did in the military. But, you know, these guys, they kind of kept it close to the vest, really didn't say anything. And, you know, even towards the end of his life, you know, he'd tell me a few stories about him and his buddies, you know, stopping for Christmas and hanging out with the German soldiers and stuff like that. But like, you know, just little things like that. So, you know, I didn't really think much of it when he passed away, and he left me his footlocker. And inside the footlocker is all this kind of memorabilia. It's got stuff from the Allies. It's got stuff from the Germans, like all this cool stuff that's in there, you know, collectible stuff that people, you know, really love now. But at the time, it was just, you know, these guys collecting patches from each other and things like that, and, you know, swapping things. And but at the bottom of the footlocker is this old leather-bound journal, and it's all written in German. So I have no idea what that is. And since I work, you know, at a college, I had one of my colleagues translate it, and it's a whole documented thing about the Nazis in 1938 going to they're going to Antarctica, of all places, and they're looking for Rainbow City, which is supposedly an ancient alien civilization. Now, one of the things that I noticed in a lot of there's all this chicken scratch around the edges and everything, and it's actually written in English. And I'm looking at it, and when my buddy translated it, everything, he says, you know, this is Admiral Byrd's signature.
What?
And Admiral Byrd did Operation High Jump in 1946, which he actually went to Antarctica, and they actually launched 3 nuclear weapons on the German base in Antarctica in hopes to take over the base. And according to all my research, they were repelled, and they had to leave. Now, Admiral Byrd, in all of his research, supposedly actually found a huge hole in Antarctica and took an airplane into the hole. Now, these are things that, you know, a lot of people, they tell you it happened, it didn't happen. But if you watch Google Earth, every now and again, Google Earth will go over the hole, and then in 5 minutes later, that video is gone. So I was just so intrigued by this, because here's my grandfather, you know, he got a hold of this journal And I'm a writer, so I'm sitting here thinking of all these cool fantasy aspects and things I can add to this story. And a young man getting a journal from his grandfather, and it's a magical journal. He unlocks the secrets to this magic journal, and then all of a sudden he figures out that he's on a journey of a lifetime. These ancient aliens that we think are coming from above somewhere have been here on our planet the whole time.
So, with everything being declassified lately, that we are finding out that there's truth about that. And just recently, and I think that I featured it on my show, The Tingling Tea, there is Israeli scientists who said that these aliens have been actually living in these underground bases on this planet for some time now, and they have an agreement with all of these governments in some kind of a federation or an alignment with one another, where they can do experiments on us and this planet. So the Germans were not far off. I know that they were occultists in the sense that they wanted to go back and find anything that had to do with the occult, but I also heard, even in spite of them going to Antarctica, they also went to the moon and found some kind of base on the moon. So this is so much more intriguing in that sense. It's just that, I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine the truth behind that, and what you have is so much gold. There's so much, probably much deeper in that than what we're seeing. Well, I'm curious about how he got it.
So what I did is I started doing more and more research, because, and even Ralph was talking about this earlier, as a writer, we're always doing research. We're always looking into things. So I approached a lot of my military buddies, and I said, listen, my grandfather's got this journal. I says, we've got to do some investigation into this stuff. And of course, as we're doing this, the Hunting Hitler show is out. And of course, they're talking about all of this. And I'm watching one of the episodes, and I see my grandfather's naval vessel there.
Oh my gosh.
So wow. I actually had to do a little research on my grandfather and find out how did he come across this journal? Like, why, he was a naval officer. As far as I knew, he was in France, according to everything that, was told to our family. But I guess towards the end of the war and everything, he was actually assigned to hunting Hitler. One of his assignments was actually going down to Argentina with other naval officers, Israeli intelligence and things like that. And they were actually down in Argentina keeping an eye on Hitler.
And probably so many of his cronies too, who fled to Argentina.
Yeah.
Yep. So now all the research I, have found out about is that, he was alive and well down there in 1952.
I heard the same thing too.
I heard the same thing
also, that he was not dead.
Right. And according to everything I understand, the Allies were not really too concerned with him. They were concerned with the people trying to bring back the Fourth Reich, and actually his cronies. They were more concerned with his cronies. And of course, what did the Allies do? The Allies rounded up all the scientists and herded them into the United States. Yep. Because their technology was light years ahead of ours.
But light years is the key word here. Light years is the key word here, because where did they get that technology?
I was just going to say, I wonder where that came from.
Mm-hmm.
It's so funny, because I know one of the stories I heard was about this thing that happened in the air over Germany with these special crafts that the Americans couldn't keep up with, and they were flying circles around them. These were considered German special planes. And, those are one of the stories that I heard as I was researching certain things, because I was thinking of doing something at one point. And I was like, there's a lot of stuff out there. And I think it's funny that recently, during 2020, when all this stuff was happening, the Americans go, oh, yes, there are aliens. But, nobody was around to really pay attention when they said that.
My concern is how they even had any interaction with Hitler, and why they aligned with him, knowing his penchant for world dominance. This is just like really like, are they evil? Are they nefarious? Or are they good? Were they trying to stop him in some way? There is the question, and it is a conundrum.
Well,
they gave him technology. They gave him technology to excel. So this is very interesting.
And that was the whole premise behind Rise, was because, you know, if you look around the world at all different types of aliens and what people have supposedly seen throughout history, one of the aliens that continues to pop up around the world is called the reptilians.
Reptilians, yes.
So what I did is I actually took all of that, and the reptilians have aligned themselves with the Nazis, and they are trying to bring back the Fourth Reich. And so that's where this is all going. Now, this this is a 10-book series here. There's so much involved in this that I couldn't just do a trilogy. You know, so this ancient alien civilization that's underneath Antarctica is called the Zerrillians. And they make contact with this young man with this journal. And come to find out, he's a long-lost descendant of this royal blood, these Zerrillians. And they finally are coming out into the open because the Nazis have aligned with the reptilians, and the reptilians are, in essence, trying to take over not just this planet, but others.
I don't know, Chris. I think you might be writing true stories, because I hear the Zerrillians are ruling England right now, and ruling some parts of America. I tell
people this all the time. I tell people this all the time. When they read my story, I said it's fantasy. But I tell them, is it really fantasy or is it real?
Fantasy. Fantasy. That's what you're saying.
Well, so I have to ask you because, you know, one of the big questions I always get, you know, from people who want to write is this whole concept that I don't know what to write. And I always tell them, you have tons of things that you're able to write. And I can see that you've taken this concept and run with it, which is write what you know. You've taken all the stuff that's happened to you, little bits and pieces of things that have happened to you, or stuff that have something to do with you, or you've taken it and personalized it by taking things from your life and putting it into these stories. You know, I really am happy that that's what you're writing has a certain aspect of, because it makes it easier to show people, look, he took this and this and this from his life, added it to the story, and it's a whole different story here. So, you know, what do you think about this whole concept of you write what you know?
Yeah. As you know, I do a lot of panels and a lot of talking, you know, to people who want to do that very thing. You know, what do I do with these ideas? How do I write them? How do I bring them out to other people? And you're exactly correct when you say write what you know, because, you know, who's more of an expert than you at what you know? Yourself.
Right.
And a lot of people, what they do is they come up with a concept that they think other people are going to like.
Exactly.
And here's the thing. Listen, you write for yourself first. You know, you write something you think you're going to enjoy, and I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of other people that are going to enjoy it as well. Exactly. So when you do say, yes, you know, write what you know, because here's the thing. The more you write, the better you're going to get at it. And then, sure, maybe down the line, you know, other people approach you and say, hey, you know, what about this concept? Could you write this for me? You know, would you be a ghostwriter? Could you help me write this? And then all of a sudden, sure, because you have that experience, that background of writing things on your own and things that you enjoy, then all of a sudden you can kind of focus on some other things that maybe other people would like you to do.
I'm so happy you said that, because you get this all the time, just like you said with the panels and everything. But people are always coming up going, how do I write? What do I write about? What's going on? And, you know, they never believe you when you tell them write what you know, or just write. Just sit down and write whatever comes to mind. Whether it's a shopping list, whether it's a word or a definition, and they look every time I say something like that, they look at me like, no, that's not writing. You're trying to trick me. You're trying to like keep all these writing ideas to yourself. I'm like, no, I'm telling you how do you write.
Listen, we're almost at time because we do have to bring in our other guests. But before we do, Chris, do you want to stay, or do you have somewhere to go?
Oh no, I can certainly stay. It says Melanie's got a question. May I answer
Melanie
that?
has a question.
Yeah,
Please answer that. Thank you.
It says, who is your favorite character you've written and why? And I really have to say that Dr. Chase is my favorite character. Even though I like all the heroines and the heroes that I've written about, but Dr. Chase he's kind of out of the Gridiron Conspiracy. He has become such an enigma to people. I get so many people email me, talking to me at conferences, and what are you going to do with this guy? Like, you can't, like, we have to see more of this character. So I'm actually in the process of writing the Dr. Chase Chronicles, which is an offshoot of the Gridiron Conspiracy, because so many people still want to see more about Dr. Chase.
And what his name is so apropos.
Yeah.
I think that it lends to his mystery, Dr. Chase. Because you can't grasp him. You can't figure out who he is. It's very intrigued by him. So thank you so much, Chris.
Yes, thank you guys for having me.
You're very, this has been very interesting, and we'll definitely have you come back. So if you look at the bottom of the screen and follow down, look at the screen that's scrolling. You can follow Chris on Facebook at Arthur C. PANICCIA, and Twitter at Chris PANICCIA. And of course, he's at www.paniccia. So, please like, subscribe, follow, purchase his material. It seems to be so intriguing. I think I'm going to have to add that to my library. I'm so excited now because now I know a little bit more about it, and I will definitely probably be hitting you up, asking you questions on the DL. Like, okay, so what do you think? What was really behind this? I'm so excited to finally meet you face to face, and I can only wish you the best. So you're definitely going to lend to the conversation because you all have a little bit of commonality here, actually, and I'm going to bring that. I'm going to bring the meeting of the minds together because there's something that we talked about, the fact that we do know that these Ceruleans exist, and something about President Trump that I highlighted recently.
Oh,
and this other character that we have that we're going to feature when we bring in our other guests is going to be interesting.
You mean they actually acknowledged the Space Force that's been around for over 20 years?
Not even that. The fact that Israeli doctor that I told you about, that scientist, said that Trump was about to out him, and the aliens came to Trump and told him not to do it. So this is a very interesting story. I'm going to tell you that. Yeah, he was going to be idiotic enough to do it. So anyway, so let's bring him in. Let's just do a little bit of our next guest. This is very interesting too. We are, like we said, we are people of color here, so that we love comics and everything like that. And one of the things that we really wanted to highlight are stories or comics that are written by people of color, no matter what their ethnic background. And so this particular person that's coming in, he is like, I don't want to call him a jack of all trades, but he's a smart guy. I will say that. Despite the fact that he is a creator of comics, this man is a medical professional too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So let's look at. I did find a little brief documentary that was published about them when they were I believe, at Comic-Con, which was a really big deal. Mm-hmm. That's where I first met them. You all met them. I met them at Comic-Con maybe 2 years ago. You all met them before
maybe 4 years ago.
Maybe 4 years ago, exactly. But maybe 4 years ago.
I used to work with them.
Yeah, that's like so weird. Her family in some aspects. Okay, so let's just watch this little brief documentary that I found on them. 1 second.
For those things there, a lot of tea lights. Oh shit. Okay. Do we need any more tea lights, or we're good for those? Oh, you did those two. Here, take these. No, I think those have them. I'll check. So here we are sitting up in New York Comic Con 2016. We operate on DC Standard Time, even here. And so everybody else is set up and we're still getting started. But it's okay. Beautiful new issue. Okay?
Debut issue.
Came straight from China. And here we are. And we didn't check our proofs. So the pages are actually out of order. Brilliant, right? Brilliant.
Usually, you know, after Comic-Con, there's this sort of down period where we relax and we're like, okay, we have, you know, almost 12 months to get things done. And very rapidly, it turns into like 4 months and we're like, oh crap, we have very little time to get this stuff together. You would think that after doing this for 4 years, we would get better at this and plan more appropriately, but this year's probably been the worst in terms of that stuff.
But that's okay. Printing error, collector's item. You're never going to see this again. So get here, grab your free copy of this error, and enjoy, frame it, and who knows, one day this will be worth a lot of money.
Quorum's wife, Sarah, picked it up and started reading it. And she's like, this doesn't make sense. And then Quorum called me and said, hey, dude, there's something seriously wrong. So I'm like, you know, maybe it's just one issue. Check a couple more. And he's like, no, it's in every single issue that I have. And he had like 4 or 5. And it was like, I can't believe this is happening 2 days before Comic-Con.
Stamp.
There's no way we can reprint this. Now we've got 2,000 issues of this misprinted comic book. Of course, we have the issues from the previous year, but we've been hyping the, you know, premiere of this new issue, and you know, the pages are messed up and it's a giant misprint.
Oh yeah, you guys want to see your other ones you ordered? Yeah, they're in here. The T-shirts, United. Yeah. Let me get this one. What is this? This one is the other T-shirt you ordered off of.
I think one of the things that was so critical for us at Comic-Con is the fact that we had to recognize we're not Marvel, we're not DC, we're not Image, so we don't have that brand recognition that these other comic books come with. You know, I had this like kind of vision or, you know, inspiration to create a Mughal sort of Indian Desi sort of themed tent that really kind of sort of shaped our space, and it was a way to kind of draw people in and sort of define us from as a landmark. Because if you've ever walked around near Comic-Con, it's a freaking maze. Oftentimes you just get lost in all these walls of comics and tables of stuff, so you really need some like landmarks to kind of find your way around. I figured what better way than to create this tent.
No, I mean, I'm very clearly taking a video. Very clearly. Well, you're buying shit?
Buying shit.
All right.
We actually went back there and we realized we're never going to find you.
We actually got a screen. Some tiny ass place, bro.
It's tiny, but when it goes to you, it's tiny.
Who wants the poster?
I was skeptical. Okay, yeah. I wasn't like, TV, so how are you? We're creators. All of our artists are here right now.
Yeah, Kurum's like super outgoing, which is, you know, he's like, hi, I'm Kurum Matadin, creator of Zindan, you know, and it's really funny to watch, but it's nice because that really sort of, like I said, breaks the ice, brings people in, and he has a great way of engaging people, and I think that's really sort of critical, especially when you're trying to develop that recognition for your brand.
Wow, you know, I was drawn to this tent. Just yesterday, we were interviewed on a YouTube page, just because, you know, the host of that show saw our tent. He's kind of wielding an axe, so, you know, we have a lot of people that are stopping in front of our tent. He's an 8-foot cutout of a very large Pathan man named Khan the Man-Eater.
With his chest bare and ready to just flex those pecs.
And wielding an axe that he's about to chomp down on.
Putting so much care into those signatures, bro.
I really tried.
This year, it was very hard to get into Comic-Con, and I spoke to some of the organizers and the sales reps, and they said they really liked our booth presence. We really want to elevate the show, and you guys do a great job with your tent, with your sort of immersive experience. So using that this year, we tried to bump it up, and you'll see some of that stuff this year. You know, we're working on some better backgrounds. I'm trying to incorporate a lot more, you know, visuals and sort of 3D things to try to draw people to the table and really make it an awesome experience. More than half the attendees are new attendees every year, which is shocking to me. Where you get a new set of, I mean, there's like, I think last year was 170,000. So where you get almost 90,000 new fans to show up at Comic-Con, I don't know. So I was shocked that there's so many new people. So we still haven't begun to really even saturate the attendees. So I think it's exciting how many times we've sold our first issue to people who are brand new to the series. Overwhelming majority, I think maybe almost 80% of our contacts are with new people, brand new to the series. So I think we still have a lot of opportunities to reach out to people who have an open mind, who have not experienced ZINDAN, who have not experienced anything like this or from this region. And the hope is to kind of continue to work on our craft on our end, while also trying to engage people who have never seen this before. Ultimately, there is going to be a point where we're like, okay, wait, we really have to up our game, and I think we try to do that every year. Right now, we've been lucky so far that we're still so much an underdog, so indie that, you know, we still have a lot of fresh minds willing to kind of go on the journey with us. So let's see how it goes this year.
हाँ बस वो बटन प्रेस करो आराम से हो जाएगा नहीं कर रहे
You all get out from this little thing.
Yo, just pee on it. Can we pee on it? Can we pee on it?
Yes. Be on it.
Oh my goodness, hilarious. So let me just give you a little background about our next guest. He was born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio. He's been collecting comics since he was 8 years old. He fell in love with the Incredible Hulk, which went on to be his favorite comic book character. And throughout high school and college, he avidly collected comics, hoping that one day he would create his own superhero. And in 2014, he launched his debut comic series, ZINDAN, The Last ANSAARS. And artist Sajjad Shah, he is currently writing ZINDAN, The Incapable Trump, and working on launching a great medicine series called The CL Psychiatrist. Without further ado, you all, please welcome Mr. OMAR MIRZA. Hi.
Hi.
Oh my gosh, I love your he, him, his. You're so, oh, I love it.
Well, I want to start by thanking you guys. It's. I mean, you guys have been such an incredible part of our journey and helping to, you know, platform us and get us out there. So it's so nice to be back with you guys. Obviously, it feels like home. And so I just wanted to start there. And if you aren't subscribed or following these guys, definitely do that. Please, please, please. It's amazing. They put out a lot of content and spotlight a lot of independent creators. So we are very, very, very grateful to you guys.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Leslie, before you start, I have to say it's a mutual like friendship here, because one of our biggest videos is the interview we did with ZINDAN in 2016, because it reached like into the 10Ks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that
at the same time? I saw two Appletinis in that video we just saw.
Yes, I did. I was like, how did Cadman get in there? Nuts. And, you know, I didn't even pre-screen that documentary, and here she shows up. You know, so hey, looking like Lara Croft. So I was just saying, you know, hey, I'm so, but we didn't really get to talk when we saw you. I mean, our first interview with you, of course, that was when Ralph and Cadman saw you. But I think the second time when I met you, you were really busy. I mean, your booth is just like amazingly busy whenever we go to Comic-Con, and people are swarming around that booth. Yeah. And one of the things that I think that was the most attractive about the booth is the color and the vibrancy.
Oh my God, it's beautiful.
But not only that, the history that is represented there. It's so intriguing. And you have to say that anything that looks like, you know, yes, Melanie's pronouns. That's what I loved about it. You know, you have to say that all three of those things, it just brings up this whole mystical time that people fall in love with. And it just is such a great visual. Everything about the comic is just a great visual.
It is.
So
Thank you.
yeah, you're very, very welcome. We're going to bring Chris in at some point, but I just kind of wanted to highlight you first. So when Ralph can say this and attest to this, I am a huge fan of any type of Mogul history. I am, believe it or not, a student of classical Indian dance. So this kind of stories and stuff like this, these are stories that we dance to, especially Kathak and everything like that. We dance to tell these amazing stories about, history, gods and goddesses, everything. This is just all up my alley.
I'm glad.
And I love the fact that you are highlighting a history that is so much of a mystery to a lot of people, unless they watch old epic Bollywood films, things like, the stuff that now everybody's watching, because this is like this is kind of like the thing now. People watch Bollywood films, and a lot of the Bollywood films are featuring this type of history, this type of lore, or type of storytelling. So 100% I'm in. What was it about? What was it that you did that you decided you wanted to create these characters? What was it about? What made you have this passion outside of being a fan of the Hulk and the comics itself? How did you come up with this concept of ZINDAN and the last ANSAARS?
Yeah, thank you. I think as people of color, I think we all really look for representation in media, particularly, and sadly, up until maybe the last couple of years, and even currently, we don't necessarily get that representation that we had hoped for. And particularly, in comics, I grew up reading comics, and I really loved comics, but what was missing was always the fact that there wasn't somebody who looked like me. It was sort of a Peter Parker, Tony Stark, a Cyclops. These people that probably were the type of people that were bullying us maybe in school or something like that, and so it never really resonated in the way that I was looking for. And so for me, around 2014, I was like, I've always loved comics, and I always desired to see some representation of myself. And I think this was punctuated particularly post 9/11, where the representation of people of brown skin, particularly from either Southeast Asia or South Asia and the Middle East, was really polluted by sort of the post 9/11 effect. It was like so important for me to try to kind of change that narrative. And so when I sat down and I started writing and thinking about it, I naturally placed this character in like a metropolitan New York kind of place, because that's all that I've ever consumed in terms of comics. And I felt like this feels really kind of redundant and maybe to some degree stale. And I was also worried about, what am I adding or contributing to this? And then I realized, there's such a rich personal history. If you go east, particularly to, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and you start looking at the history of those areas, so beautiful, like the silk and everything. And so I figured that was probably the best setting to sort of set these characters and really try to change sort of the aesthetic of what, people traditionally think about when you think of people from, India, Pakistan, or Muslim background. And so for me, that was really, really important. And I think it lent itself nicely because also with the sort of distance in time, we could get away from 9/11, right? 9/11 exists historically. So like that, we could just kind of push aside and say, okay, let's put this aside for a while and let's focus on this people before this really kind of tainted the impression. And I think it gave me an opportunity to really showcase, the settings, the clothing, the, culture. And I think I didn't really appreciate how big of an impact this could have until actually Black Panther came out. And you got to see how Wakanda really sort of celebrated and platformed Africa in a way that you'd never seen Africa before. We always see Africa as this like third world place that's never, majestic, regal. You never got to see the textiles in the way that you got to see from that movie. Right. And in many ways, I think ZINDAN hopes to try to capture the same sort of magic for people from, South Asia.
Yeah, I definitely think that it does do that because it is such a rich history, and I probably much richer than any history I've ever come across or studied. It is extremely rich. It's so intermingled. There's so much, oh gosh, the culture is just amazingly vibrant and rich. And all of the intrigue and the back and forth, the wars, the things that happen, in India and Pakistan, all of that area there, the romance, the intrigue, the beauty, the glory. I mean, if you're thinking about empiric type of majesty, that's where it is. It's such a rich history. It really, really, really is. And still lends to a lot of the spice and I'm saying that word, I'm using it loosely, but it lends to a lot of the spice that people love today, the color and enjoyment things. There's a lot of things that came out of that area that people don't even realize that they consume right now. And it was a result of that history that was there. And you're absolutely right. One of the things that I feel that we neglect as Americans is that we think that we live in our own world. We're so myopic of our viewpoint. But the thing is that this is a place of many cultures. And if you are here, if you live to be old enough to appreciate it, you must study other cultures. You must engage yourself in that. You would have a richer, fuller life. Travel, explore. It changes your perspective about anything, even when it comes to religions and beliefs that you might be seeing, portrayed on television. Study these things. Don't be afraid to open your mind to these kind of cultures and stuff like that. In particular, and I have to say this about the Muslim faith. The Muslim faith is a beautiful faith. I have studied it. And everything that you see, there's extremists everywhere in this world. And we have experienced that in the last 4 years. So I'm just telling you, there's a good and bad in everything, but that's not representative of a people. It's not representative of a faith. It's just some bad people doing bad things because they want control. So I'm just saying, this is what you do. And I love the fact that in this whole realm of what we call geekdom, this world of geekdom, that all of us are open to all of these ideas. We're a family that appreciates everything. We consume everything. So
I think that's one of the beautiful things about the geek culture and the fandom is that we transcend a lot of the boundaries that you see in other spaces. And so I think that that's one of the wonderful things that, all of the viewers, and I'm sure when you go to Comic-Con, you really feel embraced by all sorts of people. There's the anime people, there's the people who like magic, there's the people who really like the vintage comics, but yet we all share this, community and this celebration, and there's this openness to experiencing things. And, I think the thing that speaks to this most truly is that when we started, we thought inherently our audience is going to be people of South Asian backgrounds. And I honestly have said, I cannot say this enough, the people that embraced us the most are really our Black folks. Like, they were so down from the beginning, and I just felt so welcomed. And I was shocked because I thought, well, is this going to really appeal to you? And it did. And so I think that it was so wonderful to see that. And even people that, I thought, came from dominant cultures who might have no interest in this, surprised me with their willingness to embrace and learn and, consume the things that we were trying to put out there. So it's incredible.
I think what it is that if you're saying, like a lot of people, African heritage really were so interested in this, is I think spirit recognizes spirit. You have a culture of, you come from two very ancient cultures here. And sometimes we don't often see that depicted in our comic books or anything like that. So when we see something that we identify with, we go and we gravitate to it. The beauty and the majesty of it, a kingdom's history, a heritage that's extremely deep, a people and a nation that contributed to the whole populace of this world. So it's an influence that has spread beyond just where it came from. It's spread across the world. So yes, of course, we're going to support that 100%. Seeing anything of color on comics, So, and I love the fact that now I want to know, did you take a lot of what your concept is directly from history, and you just made it your own, or?
So we took a lot from history, and we wanted to infuse that into the fantasy, because that's what makes it familiar. You know, like fantasy, sometimes when there's no connection to history, may feel so distant that you can't, you know, feel that you can access it. But I think that creating and connecting things to history where it resonates just enough that you feel like, hey, this could be real. It feels like it could be real, but I know that it's still fantasy. That makes it really comfortable. You can kind of put it on and you can like live in it, and it really feels like a place that, you know, one can embrace. And I think that that's, you know, what we tried to do. We tried to really kind of ground it in some of the history. Particularly, you know, we took a lot of the lineages of the Mughal emperors, and we started to find out, okay, where are there some holes where we can kind of take some creative liberty, where there isn't like a very clearly documented set of facts, and then we can kind of get a little bit more creative and start to introduce some more fantasy in that, yet still retain some of the sort of structure of the historical, you know, reality. And so that, I think that's made it really fun, because it's been a learning experience too. You know, as Chris talked about, you know, as writers, you have to do a lot of research. Definitely. And so, you know, in some ways you kind of, you know, learn more about yourself. And I thought that was one of the sort of real fascinating things about doing this project, was to really learn more about the history and kind of get more connected with it. And so that was, you know, one of the like nice blessings that came out of this experience.
So I'm curious. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I remember one of the things that drew me, you know, besides the booth, what drew me to you guys was the fact that you have such a rich base in history, you know, because you know, everybody knows I'm pretty much of a history buff, and I love the fact that you were, what you were saying right now, you were like melding and diving and going into it and coming out of it and filling holes that, you know, just to make it a little more relatable. It is an amazing piece of fiction that you're able to like mix fact with fiction and give the audience a good story.
Yeah
I love it. So you were saying that you thought that you were going to have more of your Southeast Asian people supporting you know, this comic, like really just gravitating in, and that would be your only audience. But I am curious, what did they think about?
Interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we have a lot of folks who are like really excited, particularly young kids, and that is what you know, you ultimately dream of when you're doing this, which is you're making this book for like the younger version of yourself, and you see that in the young kids. So I remember one time, you know, we were doing a panel somewhere, and you know, we had these huge like banners up, and on the banners were our characters, and obviously one of these kids came up and saw it, and you know, he felt like, oh my God, you know, I can relate to this. So, you know, I think he was about 5, and he asked his mom if she could bring those characters to his birthday party. And I felt like, you know, more than anything else, that felt so amazing to me to see that, you know, like to see that excitement and to want to have those characters that, you know, we created be, you know, in attendance at his birthday party over Spider-Man, over Tony Stark and Iron Man, you know, like he wanted our characters, and that felt, you know, like $1 million, you know, and I think doing that and seeing those moments where kids look at it and say, oh, wow, you know, particularly the names, because, you know, a lot of the names kids are never going to see in sort of pop culture or media. And so seeing things like, you know, one kid whose name was Timur, who's one of our main characters, saw his name and was just like, fell in love with it. And so even, you know, having the opportunity to see names that like sound familiar or you know, resemble names that you grew up with, you know, can be so important. And so that's what we, you know, have been trying to do. And particularly for our South Asian community, to see that response, to see the kids really, you know, connect with it has been amazing.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that just made me like very teary-eyed to think that, because you don't understand how much that is needed in a community that does not see itself, and especially one that is, you know, especially one that's so misunderstood in a community where you're living. It's to just see somebody that you could gravitate to and actually use that as a tool, especially as a young kid, to say, hey, you want to know about my history? Read these comic books, you know. You know, even though there's fantasy woven in here, there's still a lot of my history in this.
Yeah.
Wow. That's like, you know, that's the ultimate. What are you all I'm not really sure how the distribution is because I'm not very familiar about the distribution, but has this been distributed to, South Asia? What is the response that you're getting overall?
Yeah. So, print comics have yet to really take off in South Asia. I mean, it's just one of those things that has yet to really achieve the same level of sort of, I think, fandom as here. But they're doing a lot, they're really adopting mobile technology. So they have, I would say, like what is analogous to Comixology in Pakistan. It's called CFX Comics.
Mm-hmm.
So they have an app that was running our digital versions of ZINDAN, and we're the highest selling book that they have there. And so, that's been amazing. I think we're still, trying to bust through markets and work on, distribution channels in South Asia. And even here, we're still trying to figure out how we can sort of scale up our distribution, because right now we're mostly doing conventions and then through our website. And we want to make sure that we have a real solid production schedule and we have a good wealth of content for people to consume before we start hitting, comic stores, and then you got to wait a year for the next issue. It's really painful. But
definitely.
Yeah, but in the meantime, we're available on our website. We're obviously available at the conventions. New York Comic Con is probably our pinnacle, and obviously, on Comixology.
That is a great question from Melanie right here.
Yeah.
Is any real cool mythological stories you learned while doing all this that we might see pop up in the comics?
Yeah, so we wanted to really infuse stories about jinns into the
I love jinns, so
yeah. And jinns are, they're always this, like terrifying but exciting thing, so depending on who you ask, people are like, oh no, don't talk about jinns, and other people are like, no. So we try to infuse a little bit of that mysticism into the story, so you can really kind of learn about that, and both good and bad, and then ties in a lot into sort of like the Abrahamic faiths as well. So there's a lot of connection there. So we've got a little bit of like, we got a little bit of spirituality. We've got obviously a lot of mysticism. We've got his history, and then a ton of fantasy and fun, which I hope are exciting and hit just the right sweet spot.
This is an interesting thing, and you said something here, so I kind of wanted just to school our audience a little bit. Okay, so what we know as jinns or genies that we see in like Latin and stuff like that, they're actually demons in Muslim faith. In Muslim faith, they're demons. So there's this big thing on YouTube where they're going to all of these abandoned properties in Pakistan and India, and they're looking for jinns.
Yeah.
And I don't know how. I love it. I'm curious and stuff like that, but that's just definitely something that I don't want to even mess with. But the other thing too, you said was Abrahamic faith. So something that a lot of people don't know about, and especially if you don't study religion and everything, the interesting thing about us as Christians and OMAR as Muslim is that we are related, and we're related by Abraham, who is the father of both Isaac and Ishmael. We were both given the blessing by God, both gifted people given blessings by God, because it said that Abraham's son would be blessed. He had two. He had one child with Hagar, his maidservant, and one with Sarah. So just to let you all know, that's how deep this family is. So what we consider to be warring against each other as Muslims and Christians, we're actually related, y'all.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Jews.
Yeah.
Because y'all were related.
All three of the
we're all related. We all believe in the same God and the same book.
Exactly.
If you study theology, that's what he means by that. He means everybody from the Abrahamic faith.
Yeah, and we try to borrow from, because I went to Catholic school, so I studied Bible in high school, and so what I try to do is draw on stories from the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, which all intersect. If you read them all, you realize there's a lot of overlap, and they reference the other.
Exactly,
so
they do.
Trying to incorporate some of that, again, to touch on that familiarity so that it feels like comfortable and real and easy to kind of enter the story. Otherwise, it might feel like, I don't know anything about this and it's really hard. but we wanted to try to touch on some of the things and draw those in so that it felt familiar and it was easy to kind of connect immediately with the story and resonate. So we wanted to do that as, again, twofold, to make it easy to sort of like connect, but also to emphasize the fact that we are all one family. You know,
Yeah.
we are, and you know, things that you might think are so far away from you in terms of culture and history and religion experience actually is probably far closer than you think. And
Exactly.
you know, it would be nice for people to be reading it and say, "Oh my gosh, I know about that! Like, I read it. That's from the Bible."
Mhm.
You know, and it's from the Quran too. So you know, seeing that opportunity to kind of connect and reinforce that we all share histories and faiths and can really, I think, just make this more of a powerful experience for folks.
I think that's an important thing to do because, you know, when I was studying the different religions, it was so amazing how many connections they have, how much stuff is interlinking with each other, how much is being talked about that is the same more than is different. And, you know, it's just something that needs to be put out there.
Yeah.
Not that this is, you know, this is your religious message for the day, you all, but we're not advocating anything. We're just saying educate yourself.
Exactly.
So here is the interesting thing that I wanted to talk about with this series is that there are women warriors in here.
Oh yeah.
And you know, contrary to what you may believe about this culture, there are women warriors in it, and some of them who are historically renowned in the culture. So I'm so glad you decided to depict this image, and these are so beautifully drawn, and them fighting. Oh gosh, this is amazing. I love it. Tell us about this. I mean, why was it important for you to make sure that you had these images in this comic?
Well, obviously we wanted to capture all the different forms and beauty of the culture, and you know, half of that, more than half of that actually, is really the women. And you want to, you know, acknowledge that. Now, that's a cool image, but I actually, to be honest, am embarrassed of that image. And I'll tell you why.
Oh, wait, I got to go. Now I got to pull it back up. Wait a minute, that's the wrong one.
That's a beautiful one, though.
That's a good one.
This
one is, to give you some context, there's two kind of leading female characters in our story, one good, one bad. And one is Tara, and the other one's Noor. And so in this image, we had still used Tara's old costume. And Tara was one of the first characters we designed. And she is this real badass, independent thinking, you know, ruthless Kingslayer. You know, she's had a tough life, and she's learned that, you know, she's got to count on herself, and she's going to do whatever she needs to do to, you know, make it happen. And we had originally designed her costume in this way, this like kind of red, very revealing costume. And we got a lot of, I would say, needed feedback about how we portray the women in our and even with the best intention, I realized that I'd so deeply internalized a image of what women are supposed to look like that when we produced an image, a character we thought was going to be very much a strong female lead, if you know, this kind of archetype, she ended up being very much a caricature of what a woman should look like. And so, you know, I got some great feedback. We have a new design for her, and I actually have it here, which I think still captures her fiercely.
Let me pull you up.
Yeah. And it might be on the yeah. So it still captures.
Oh, that is so badass.
And I think she's badass, but then she doesn't look like she's coming out of like a Ricky's costume store, you know. And realistically, if she's fighting, you know, she's not going to want to reveal that many, you know, vulnerable spots.
That's true.
So I think that, you know, we got some great feedback about that. It was hard to swallow at first because nobody wants to think of themselves as sort of this misogynist writer. But I think that the misogyny runs so deep, unfortunately, in the media that, you know, I've grown up consuming, that it's going to take a lot of conscious effort to kind of undo that. And luckily, I have a lot of people who really hold me accountable and constantly give me feedback. And I think I'm very happy that we were able to evolve and hopefully continue to evolve as we represent these characters. So it's a great costume for us to laugh at when we look back at what we think about.
But this is a great costume here.
Well, this is pretty typical.
Very typical.
Yeah.
So this is like a Lenga Choli, and so this is a very typical costume. And even in the designs in this, you can see that she's not as busty as she was designed in the previous image, and recognizing anatomically that's not how every woman is designed, and certainly shouldn't be. So like we kind of tried to correct some of the proportions a little bit more. And we're working further. We have another issue coming out, a new cover, which I think represents more of the shades and scales of women that exist in the world. And I think that hopefully we do a better job of being inclusive and representing more realistic images and not perpetuating these kind of silly, caricatures. That said, I'm really happy that we had an image with two women who are just them fighting and showing that they can do more than just be saved. That's not the role of them.
Interestingly enough, I did not feel objectified by what I saw because I'm so used to what American comics look like.
Yeah.
But what I did see, I have to tell you, what I did see was like, okay, if this woman is a killer of kings, maybe she's a seductress, and maybe she dresses this way, and maybe this fluid costume. Fluid costume, the way that it is easier for her to move.
Yeah.
Because maybe she is a concubine. That was my first image of her. It's not that I felt that she was.
Absolutely. And that's sort of the background and how we designed her. But we realized, she can maybe slip into those costumes when needed and slip out. But I think for the duration of her character arc, if she's going to be running around in a Ricky's, belly dancing costume, it may not do justice to all the complexities of the character.
It makes sense. If you're going in a secret mission, you don't want to be all flashy.
But you think about it. At that time, women were not considered powerful. They were considered property. So her only way to get to a king, to slay a king, would to be a seductress and then a murderess.
Yeah.
That's just the way it was, unfortunately, and that's societal. Everywhere you are, it's very rarely that you find a culture where the woman is the in any type of position of authority.
Yeah.
So I get it. But I also get women being a little bit sensitive about the costume, and everything. But it's just so depicted. It's just beautifully colorful, just the colors and everything. The vibrancy.
This was Sabine Rich, who's an incredible artist, and she, just blew it away on this poster.
Wow, that is gorgeous.
Yeah.
But then again,
or is this a cover?
But South Asia is colorful like that.
Yeah.
Even down to the cooking, there's color. It's just it's something that it's appealing to every sense, and so I appreciate this cover because it's just gorgeous.
Yeah, so it looks like a cover. That's why I was wondering. Is it just a poster?
Just a poster.
Like a beautiful cover.
It goes back to when we were first getting out there around like 2015. I think it was at that time special edition, that like small version of New York Comic Con that only ran 2 years, and then they.
I remember that one. Yeah.
And when you don't have brand recognition, right? When you're not a Marvel, when you're not a DC, you have to figure out ways that people become familiar with your content. And so what we used to do was we would print out thousands of these posters and hand them out for free, just so that people would start to subtly become familiar with the images.
Smart.
And then it would draw them to the table. And so they'd be like, I've seen this before somewhere. I'm familiar with this character. And that would make it easier the next time they saw us to help draw them into this series. And so these things we used to hand them out everywhere. And I still have stacks of these. So we give them out for free still, along with the con posters and just
I want one.
Just to help.
I'm looking at it going, I want one.
This is appealing to every teenage boy, honestly. That's probably they were really flocking to the table, I'm sure, to get this free poster. Just beautifully done. So now there is something that we do have to talk about that, since we have delved into this, that you are creating and that you are working on.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't go without talking about this person right here. He's saying, no, 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 you do have something about me. So let's talk about this comic. And let me just bring this up.
The Incapable Trump.
Yes, yes. I saw this and let me tell you when I did see this, as I saw people at this time when he had just been elected, when we were at Comic-Con, and people were flocking to this table to come and get this comic, and there was debates going on. And my apologies you all too about how this is written. I hear the text because unfortunately I can't see how big it is when I download it, and so of course it messed up. But that is the last ANSAARS, by the way. So there were debates going on, but believe it or not, people were not that offended. They would question you all about your stance, and then you all gave your opinion, and it was really a peaceful conversation I saw going on about this. So what made you all come up with this concept about the Incapable Trump?
I think, he got elected in, now it was 2016, and at that time, pretty quickly, the Muslim ban came out, and obviously, again, felt very personally targeted. And I felt like, what can I do about this? And, first thing you do, you get on and throw up like a Facebook status, and maybe a couple tweets you fire off. And I still felt unsatisfied with, the critique or the expression of my frustration. And so, I was like, well, I do comic books and I'm a writer. Maybe I can just create an image for something I can take to post protest. And so, I obviously kind of sat down, and I was a big fan of the Incredible Hulk. And so I thought, hey, this seems to work, particularly the dialogue on the cover, is he man baby? Really, is he man or monster? If you look at the original Hulk cover, it doesn't have to be anything. I just kind of added the man baby instead of the man, And the it just lent itself very nicely. And so we created this poster with the intention to just take it to protest. And the comments were like, "Oh, I can't wait to buy this when it comes out." And I didn't realize that people were thinking that it's going to be a real comic. And I said, "Oh my gosh, yeah,
I got to make a comic."
So I was like, "All right, let's sit down here." And I started writing, and it was very cathartic for me to express how I felt in the setting of this, uncertainty with this new president who had campaigned on a lot of divisive issues. And so, originally I started a lot softer in the writing than I am now. If you look at the evolution of sort of the comic, it gets a little bit more biting. But, I was kind of like, okay, well, he was quite a jerk during the sort of campaigns, but maybe I will try to write this with sort of a sympathetic lens. Here's a guy who's just kind of a victim to this really horrible monster that he becomes, and it's not him. He's helpless in this process. In the same way kind of Bruce Banner is sort of helpless to this incredible rage inside of him. And, so the first issue was kind of really more neutral. And we'd sent it out for reviews, and somebody had said something like, "This makes a joke out of the whole thing. I can't take it seriously. It's really offensive." And that kind of resonated with me. And I said, "Yeah, I'm kind of being a little bit too easy on this guy." And I realized that the monster is actually not the Trump character, the Trump character, but really the monster is Donald. Donald's the monster, and really the victim in this is the big hulking guy, the mask in here. And to kind of bring it back to the idea that that he is not this helpless person who kind of does these evil things, but surely there's a degree of sort of nastiness about him that I think I didn't capture in the first few issues. So it was really just kind of this exploration about how I felt about him, how I felt about what's been going on. And frankly, it writes itself, because honestly, he does things that just kind of feel like being a comic book. We've gone from there, and it looks like people have embraced it. And I think what I was hoping to do, in addition to being sort of an opportunity for me to express myself and an outlet, was to just help create some dialogue. And it sounds like as people were lining up to get this book, there was plenty of
definitely
there was plenty of dialogue going on.
Because I did a lot of filming for you guys. during this time. You remember?
Mhm.
And I would go into the crowd, and the line, which you had trouble with a couple times because you had to figure out how to do that line because other people were getting upset.
Yeah.
I would go into the line, and they weren't fighting each other. They weren't. They were just discussing, the whole Trump thing. They weren't like I never heard a fight.
Yeah.
I always heard discussion, and that I found that so important. And I feel like you were able to bring that discussion to the table, especially because people wanted this book so badly. And on top of that, your book is selling online for like a good amount of money.
Yeah.
Listen,
you did a great job.
You did, and I did promise that I was going to bring Chris in because Chris has to leave. But I wanted to you all to meet each other because there's a mutual thing right here that we wanted to talk about that he brought into play when we interviewed him about Trump and reptilians and stuff like that. So maybe this could be something that. So Chris, I'm bringing you in right now.
Chris.
Hey.
Well, in listening to this whole segment, it's just I keep like I'm a bobblehead because there's so many things that we as creators of comics and fantasy series and sci-fi series, and like you say, geekdom in general. It's really amazing to me when I go to the different Comic-Cons and I go to different places around the country and around the world and talk to people about this. It is amazing to me that we all speak the same language. We talk to each other in the same way. We share, our own experiences, and it really ignites the point that we are one race of people on this planet. And that's what we really need to be focusing on. We need to be focusing on the fact that there's a lot more that we have in common than we ever have in differences.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting, because music has the ability to do that, to bring people together. Any type of art. That's why people who are artists or creators have a strong sphere of influence, because for some reason that speaks many languages and it brings people together when people talk. So absolutely. But I wanted to bring you in just briefly, because I know you have to leave, but we were talking about your characters, the reptilian characters, and the fact that, and Omar, we were talking about Trump. So you all know that once this person came out, this scientist came out saying that these reptilians do exist and they have been living on our planet for a long time, and they've been collaborating with our government officials. Trump wanted to release this information to the public, and the aliens actually took a stance on that and asked him not to. And so I'm curious, both of you all's perspective. Baby Man's opinion of it, and then your perspective on it, Chris, the fact that he wanted to actually release this information and the panic that possibly would ensue if people knew that these interdimensional characters were living on our planet. Interesting subject. But Omar, what do you think? How would Baby Man or the incapable, how would the incapable Trump deal with these reptilians? First, let me ask Chris first, because he has to leave. So what do you think about this concept? Do you feel like that's going to come into play in any of your books where the president wants to release that information?
It is actually coming into my books right now. I'm actually in the fourth book, which is called Warlord. And that kind of gives a little bit of insight, as the powers that be have to really face this head on, and they have to deal with the fact that these folks are here, that they, their intentions are hostile, and what are they going to do as a result of that? So I mean, yes, we always sit and we think about, are they going to come from above? Are they here? But the fact of the matter is that it's really not going to matter, because I think they're a lot closer to us than we think. Because and my personal preference and thinking on this is, when you deal with beings of all different kinds, who's to say that we're not the aliens on this planet? Because for 75 million years, the dominant species on this planet were dinosaurs. Now, all of a sudden, we as a species are the dominant species on the planet. So who's to say we're not the aliens?
Who invaded whom? And the gentleman by the name is Chaim Eshet, who is the scientist that just recently retired and has a book out regarding these aliens. Thank you, Chris. Now that we know, see, you know what? You have your finger on the pulse of things. I don't know. I think you might be getting some messages.
Research.
Yes, exactly. Because that is revelatory. The fact that you're saying that this is going to be playing into your next book, where now they're going to have to release this information, and eventually we're going to find ourselves facing that here on this planet, because somehow, some way, it's going to be known.
Well,
this gentleman revealed.
With the Freedom of Information Act, there is so much information out there right now that you can find that people they will be blown away by, and it's right there for the taking. And looking at just basic information. Now, obviously, people, it's always been a situation. How much information should be given to people? Are people going to be able to handle this type of information? And that's always been the fear. The fear is that people are not going to be able to handle this type of information.
Well, obviously, we know that. I mean, there are a lot of people out there that only believe what they hear on the news. And so therefore, they're making assumptions or living their whole entire life by that. And this is why we have so much chaos ensuing in our nation right now, because of these beliefs. And I don't think that those people are capable of handling anything like that information. So yeah, it might be a crazy situation if they were allowed to know that aliens exist. We might have the same, situation as War of the Worlds, when it was aired on the radio so many years ago. So
that alone tells you how people will react to it.
Yeah.
They reacted to War of the Worlds that way, just because they thought it was real.
Yeah. And now they know it's real. Oh Lord, that would just be anything. But anyway, thank you so much, Chris. We will definitely have you come back.
Everyone.
Thanks so much for your opinion.
Omar, and very nice to meet you.
Have a great.
Yeah, Chris, I still have like 10,000 questions
for you guys.
So we're gonna have you back.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna have to have you come back. Definitely. All right. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, everyone.
So Omar, now, how would Man Baby, the incapable Trump, deal with the fact that he knows that these reptilians exist?
It's a good question. It might be the topic of my next comic. I gotta figure out how to infuse this into the story. I'm sure the way I've portrayed him is to be jealous, petty. Obviously, all the qualities that we've seen him display for the last 4 years. So I think that he might first react to this in a way to figure out how he can label these guys or brand them. Trump name, right? So the Trump aliens or the Trump spaceships.
Trillions.
Trump, yeah, I think that's where it'll start, and then from there, obviously, figure out some way that he can recruit them and exploit them into his own cause for himself. So I think that's where
that's where we would go with that one.
Probably right.
Me and the aliens are bigly friends.
Bigly friends, yes, exactly. Tremendous. The tremendous people, I tell you.
I and them are making a plan, and we're gonna figure things out, and you're gonna see big things coming.
Exactly.
Now that he's not in office, though, do you feel that this comic still has the same impact that it did?
It's a good question. I don't know. I mean, we obviously didn't have Comic-Con this year, and we were like leading up to the election. So there was, I think, a little bit of this like peak frenzy, related to the book. We had a giveaway with like this scavenger hunt across New York City to try to make sure the books got out in the hands of people. Yeah. So that was fun. I mean, we were really kind of trying to stick to the once a year schedule right around October, and obviously without the convention, it was really hard to
made very difficult. That's very creative, though, to do something like that, because it gets the fans motivated. You get the book in the hands of fans.
Yeah,
I give you credit for that, bro.
Yeah, it was always important for us, particularly with the Trump stuff, never to monetize any of it. So it's there's no financial gain for us. It's always free. Everything that we do related to the Trump stuff is always given out free, because one, it's a critique on the sort of like hyper capitalism that Trump represents, and two, we wanted to make sure there's as few barriers as possible for people to kind of access the books, and so that's why we've done it that way. And yet, without New York Comic Con, there was kind of no real easy way to get this into people's hands, and so we did a little brainstorming, and I figured out scavenger hunt seems like the most fun way to do this, and so we were running around the city finding the old paper boxes, which were basically empty, COVID empty, and we were just shoving these Trump comic books in the front of the glass so that you could walk by and you probably even miss it, but it's right there.
Wow!
That's cool, yeah.
That is so cool. That is so cool.
So I think we had some really great fans who followed along and were able to snag up the copies as they were getting distributed. But to answer your question, what's going to happen after he's out of office? I don't know. I think he, if we know anything about Trump, he knows how to still keep people fixated on him. He knows how to. He's a media personality. He's a modern day circus showman, and so I think in some ways there's still going to be a lot of conversation about what he's done and the sort of consequences of his 4 years in office, and so. That I think Ralph and I were talking about whether we should continue this series, and I think we'll probably round out the series with 2 more books just to finish up at a nice 6-set miniseries.
I gotta admit, I love that idea that when you looked at the Trump and then you saw the original 6 Hulk issues.
Yeah,
you had that idea, so I'm actually looking forward to that.
And when he left, he did say that he would be back in some other capacity. So God only knows what that's going to be.
Yeah. I mean, we're obviously still in the news with the impeachment and where that's going to lead. So I think if you look at if you have the Hulk 5 and Hulk 6 covers, the original covers, they kind of, even without being transformed into the incapable Trump, they look like they're already telling the story of the Trump presidency. And so it doesn't take a lot to hey, this is going to be this is going to lend itself very nicely. The cover of Hulk 5 is this guy leading a charge against the incapable or the Incredible Hulk, and so very nicely lends itself to kind of the populace or the population against him. And then the number 6 issue has this kind of like prison cell dropping on the Trump, or on the Hulk.
On the Hulk.
And so naturally, the hope for everybody is that ultimately, Trump finds himself imprisoned or, the law. So it just, again, lends itself very nicely. So I think those 2 issues are calling out to be written. And
I can't wait to see what you do.
Yeah, me either. Okay, so we are going to have to wrap up in about 10 minutes, but I really want to touch on too that you are coming up with a medical series. And so can you kind of just give us a little background about that? And first of all, let's let everybody know, I did say, and I mentioned this before, that you are a medical professional.
Yeah.
So what do you do as a medical professional? And then tell us why you came up with this new concept for your series that you're going to come out with.
Yeah, so I'm a transplant psychiatrist at Mount Sinai Hospital here in New York City. And, part of my role, in addition to clinical work, is to also teach at the medical school. And one of the things that I was thinking about is that, I love teaching, and I've always been sort of thinking of creative ways to teach particular topics. And then, this kind of light bulb went off, and, hey, you have this other kind of talent too, which is to write and make comics. So why don't we sort of infuse the 2 and create a very palatable and fun way of learning some medical concepts. And obviously the target audience is really people who are learning medicine. But beyond that, I think even sort of for the person who's not in medicine to kind of get an eye into, I think, some very important bioethical topics in particular psychiatry. And so I'm designing a new series called The CL Psychiatrist, which is really a psychiatrist who is working in a medical hospital. And the stories are going to sort of follow some routine encounters that one would have in that position, and how to navigate those things so that you can teach young training psychiatrists how to approach those situations. And I think what sets it apart from the traditional books, outside the fact that it's a graphic novel, which will be far more interesting to read, is that I'm trying to really embrace, especially in sort of the shadow of 2020, this anti-racist approach to healthcare, which I think unfortunately has not been a cornerstone of the way that healthcare has been delivered in this country and across the world. Right. And so I'm really trying to incorporate more ideas of autonomy and anti-racism and anti-oppression into the fundamental sort of concepts that we teach in medicine. And so I hope that it will not only be an entertaining way to consume information, particularly for medical students, but also one that really pushes the boundaries in terms of our commitment to anti-racism.
I like that. I love that. That's something that's pretty dear to my heart too. I am going to ask you something that's totally not comic related, but this is like a clinical question.
Sure.
Do you believe, since you are a man of faith, is there a defining line between schizophrenia and possession?
Wow.
This is a really interesting, because this is probably my fourth series, which is I wanted one of my most I think most underdeveloped ideas right now is this concept of this man who is searching for the boundary between the two. Like I love exorcism movies, I love possession, but as a psychiatrist and one who's in the mental health field, sometimes those things look indistinguishable. So I'm curious, is this is possession and is exorcism, is this just ways for certain communities to understand mental illness, or is there something really that's unexplainable beyond sort of the bounds of our understanding of science? And I don't know if I have the answer, but I'd like to produce a story, particularly one that might get turned into a book or a TV series, where particularly I think a psychiatrist goes around the world exploring that exact thing. And I think it would be interesting. I mean, I personally would like to think that there's a medical explanation for all those things, but I also really hold a space for faith. And this is kind of going back to the X-Files, where I think this would be like a X-Files-ish kind of thing, where this really is like, traveling maybe with a man of faith, and then obviously the psychiatrist who thinks everything is just mental illness. Mm-hmm. And obviously the man of faith who's going to say, no, there's more than, what you really understand in terms of science, and how that might be a really fun series or experience to watch.
I actually wrote a paper. So, before I decided I wanted to become an actor, I was going to school to be a psychologist. And I wrote my last paper, what I considered like a thesis paper, basically on this, because I'm a woman of faith, and then I'm looking at some of the characteristics of what has been identified as classical psychological illnesses, and I'm like, hey, these are similar. And if you're looking at anything from a biblical perspective, and you're looking at like the man who was possessed by all the demons and Legion, he would be basically identified as someone who was schizophrenic, hearing voices, or people who have severe episodes of drugs, considering like crack and intoxication and crack, and they're actually believing that they're seeing things that may be interdimensional, or being possessed or attacked by these things that have been basically held off from us from a more higher realm. So it's a very interesting. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Evil, but I highly recommend that, because I think that you would really enjoy that show based on this concept that we're talking about. But thank you so much for answering that for me, because I totally am down for something like that.
And well, actually, to take it a step further, to be a little bit more provocative, when you work in mental health, particularly when you see mania, and people saying like that they are prophets or they're the messiahs, and if you watch the movie The Messiah, I think it was a Netflix show, and even in the show, it's kind of not clear, is this guy mentally ill, or is this guy truly the second coming? The question, you think back to all these big biblical characters, were they really prophets, or were these people who had bipolar disorder untreated and walking around, you know? And it's a very provocative thing to say because some of those things are very sacred. But sometimes I do have this dialogue with myself that, you know, a lot of the symptoms that you see in people who are ill are also some of the stuff that you hear about and are explained in other communities of faith as either possessions or prophet or, you know. So it's a fascinating thing, and I don't know if I have the answer, but I'd love to explore it.
It'd be very interesting to do the series on people who have actually gone around the world and seen how people dealt with psychological issues, and if it was in fact, you know, if a religious person or a religious individual, maybe, you know, a priest or a prophet of the community is fighting that issue through faith-based, and then is it actually something that would be a really good, and you could go around and discover the methods in which people did this in different cultures in order to expel demons out of people or to cure people of mental illnesses. This is very interesting.
You know, it would be like the Anthony Bourdain of like possessions and exorcism.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
You know, like a chaplain or a priest or a rabbi, imam with a mental health team, and you send them out to all the places where, you know, you find people who are suffering and figure out how to treat it. And I think it'd be a very captivating, fascinating experience.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We'll have to talk about that.
Yeah, for sure.
A little bit more.
Yeah, this could be a whole show by itself. So
yeah, it really is. I mean, we do definitely need to talk about that because it's very interesting to me. And you know, and in particular, anything where there's been like a mass possession, I'm always wondering what happens there. Is that like, you know, during like the Salem witch trials, there was this mass consensus that people were witches, and why was this mass hysteria going on? And if it was a spirit related, if it was somebody that was spiritually oppressed, or were, you know, you just don't know. It's just so interesting there, you know.
I have to tell you, Leslie, I've done a lot of research, especially because you know, a lot of my writing is spiritually based, and I've done a lot of research that dives into, and of course, you know, I don't know if many people out there know I was going to be a priest for a while, so I've done a lot of research when it comes to the spiritual aspect and the mental aspect of things. So it's so interesting to hear you guys talk about this. And all I can say personally is that I've seen things personally that help the line a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say that everybody who's possessed is actually possessed, or everybody that's you know, crazy is not possessed, but there's a line.
There is a thin line.
There is a line. And there's times where you see things that don't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, I think this is one of the reasons why the Catholic Church has a certain things that they go by in order to indicate if this is possibly, you know, some type of mental illness, or if this is possession. So, yeah, you know, they go there. So, I mean, we totally got off track here, but this is a very interesting subject, and we definitely probably have to come back and talk about that. Yeah. Maybe talk about that on the Tingling Tea because it's kind of scary.
Hey, I'll be right there with you guys.
We're there. Okay, definitely. You could come on and talk about that. So now, what's next for you? What are you going to be doing? Are you doing any more panels? And by the way, you all, please go like and subscribe. OMAR is on Instagram. He is on, and it's on the ticker tape below. He's on the Last ANSAARS is on Facebook. You know, please go and like and subscribe. Go and actually buy the content. It is amazing. Like amazing. And
I have to say, Leslie, the art alone would make you buy this stuff. The artists you have, the inkers you have.
Yeah.
Just you know, the inker is Adelso Corona.
Yeah, we gotta give him a shout out real quick. So
Adelso is one of our friends here. He's also my Dominican brother, so I have to mention him.
Adelso's going places. Adelso's on an X-Men book now.
Oh yeah, he's doing X-Men Legends.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
Adelso has really done amazing things.
Exactly.
And so John's doing amazing things as well.
Oh, definitely. And his art's just amazing. So
yeah. So okay, so we do that. We want to have you come back because I think now we're going to probably have you come back in another capacity, maybe talking about, you know, comic writers talking about the supernatural, which would be really cool.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
I think that Listen to me. I tell you, I think that would be a very interesting subject because I think creating things like that and educating people through. I mean, most people don't have they don't want to sit down and read a book about it, but they will watch images, and images are probably the longer lasting because it's visual. So to actually have something similar to what you're creating for your concept about the CL psychiatrist is going to be amazing because you're going to help people study that. Exactly. And actually have, we're all looking, there's so many of us that have fractured minds in this world. And so many people now that are being classified and identified with these, sociopathic tendencies or, bipolar tendencies or whatever. So it would be nice to know, maybe sometimes that information is a little bit too dangerous for people to have because then they'll be identifying everybody. It makes you question it. And I'm sure as a psychiatrist, you do that often. So, but thank you so much for being with us. This has been an amazing topic. And once again, you all, if you are out there, please go like, subscribe. The Last ANSAARS, please, please, please. It's a beautiful comic book, beautifully written, beautifully designed and created. And of course, Omar, thank you so much. You have been just a joy to come here.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. I mean, honestly, I'm so appreciative. It's been such a sort of nice thing to have this in the midst of a pandemic that you guys are providing this for not only small creators like ourselves, but obviously for people at home. And so I do appreciate it. And you guys got to really give yourselves a pat on the back. Incredible experience. I think I've had a lot of these video calls and Zooms and lives. And I'm honestly saying this was probably one of the best ones I've done so far. So
we appreciate that.
Thank you so much, All right, so we'll have you back, and we'll have you back in another capacity. So stay tuned. All right, have a good weekend.
Bye.
You're welcome. Have a good weekend. Okay, with that, we are ending for the day. Thank you so much for sticking with us, you all. We went a little bit long today, but it looks like we didn't lose anybody. So thanks a lot for sticking with us. Some very interesting subjects here today. And we promise you we will come back with that series regarding comics talking about the supernatural. This would be really comic artists and creators talking about the supernatural. So I think this would be really cool. That might be one of our Halloween series or something like that. So you all have a wonderful weekend. With that, we are signing off for the day. Ralph, where are you going to be this week? Any place?
I will be everywhere, and I'm thinking of doing something next week, Saturday, with one of the creators. So we'll see what happens. All I have to say to end this is you just got to look behind the scenes of what happens in the green room.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I like that. All right. Okay, you all take care. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 12 o'clock Central Standard Time. And that's 9 o'clock Pacific Time, I think. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.